Did presidential hopeful and Democratic primary candidate RFK Jr. just threaten a third-party run if the Democrats don't cut out their shenanigans? For those of you who have been paying attention to politics the last 7 years or so, you know that DNC and rigging is basically like a girl shaking her ass outside of the car window during spring break in Miami. You're never surprised by it, you actually expect it, but even still, you're like, bruh. So if you have been paying attention, then you won't be surprised when I tell you that the DNC has changed its rules in order to favor Joe Biden, the establishment hopeful and the current president of the United States. They decided that it will be South Carolina that will be the first primary state of the country, not Iowa, not New Hampshire. No, on its face, that might not seem that nefarious until you remember that Sanders, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, and Warren all beat Biden in New Hampshire. And Sanders, Buttigieg, and Warren all beat Joe Biden in Iowa as well. In fact, coincidentally enough, Joe Biden didn't win a state until South Carolina after a timely endorsement from Jim Clyburn. So in addition to protecting Biden from potentially being embarrassed by losing several primary states before they ever get to South Carolina, it also looks like they're punishing the states that didn't choose the current president of the United States of America at the ballot box. Oh, but it gets worse. Because if any candidate, like RFK Jr., who's already immensely popular in New Hampshire, steps foot in New Hampshire, not only will they lose their delegates in New Hampshire, but they'll also somehow lose their delegates in Georgia. And if somehow the New Hampshire Democrats can't convince a Republican-stacked state Congress and a Republican governor to violate their state's constitution and amend it so that they can run their New Hampshire primary after South Carolina, then they're in danger of losing up to half of their delegates as well. And this is why RFK Jr. said, if the DNC is going to continue this rigging of the Democratic primary process and make it so that it is impossible to challenge the president, then he might have to look for other alternatives. Now you're speaking in my language, yeah. And of course, I would completely agree with RFK Jr. in going third party, because I find it extremely interesting the fact that the Democratic Party, who swore they had zero doubts in the guaranteed outcome of this primary that they weren't really going to put all that much effort into, decided suddenly they're going to put every effort into fundamentally changing the primary in a way that could only negatively affect one particular candidate and completely benefit the current sitting president of the United States, who also happens to be the head of the Democratic Party.